Hey there, I am Mike Ruman with TechDads.com, and today we're talking all about Snapchat. As of a week ago, I've heard of Snapchat, but I was never really on Snapchat. But a week ago, I signed up. I've been playing with it. I've learned a lot. It's a cool tool, and today we're going to talk through the basics of what it is, how to use it. As dads, how do we use it with our kids, and what to look out for. And joining me is Paul Bay, the real PB. What's up, Paul?
Hello.
I like it. So before we dive into some Snapchat 101, the thing is Snapchat is here. It's here to stay. Just some basic stats. 19% of all iPhones have this app installed on their phone. 30 million monthly active users, which is insane. There's 60 million installs, which half of them are daily active users. There's 400 million snaps done per day per the Snapchat CEO. Paul, you have some other stats too, right?
Yeah, not only that, the engagement metrics are ridiculous. Sorry, is there a ring? Are you guys hearing an echo, or is it just me on my side? So, people always talk about how crazy deep the engagement is on Snapchat. The average Snapchat user spends 25 to 30 minutes a day. And a lot of these are brand new users. So, I mean, that's increasing all the time. Let's not forget that Facebook was spurned a couple of times. They tried to buy Snapchat for $3 billion. So Zuckerberg realized the value in terms of the engagement, the strength of the engagement there on this platform, and they're mimicking Snapchat-like features on their messaging platform all the time. Regarding reach, a Nielsen study, they're big in the TV space, did a study recently, and they think that Snapchat reaches 41% of all 18 to 34-year-olds living in the USA. It's 41%. And the crazy thing is, to contrast that, the top 15 US TV networks reach only 6% of that demographic these days. Very few, 18 to 34-year-olds are not watching as much live TV. So 41% in terms of reach. So the engagement is crazy.
And from Snapchat's website, they said their biggest demographic is 13 to 34-year-olds. Which we've had teenagers, and that seems really young, but kids are getting smartphones at younger and younger of ages. One thing I really loved about Snapchat when I started playing with it was the brands, how brands can use this. And then today I read Snapchat is charging brands $750,000 a day to advertise on it. And I think the coolest, what I saw, the coolest brand story was all around Kobe's last game. And I don't know if you want to talk about this a little bit, but how those user stories plus the NBA was involved, but it was this really cool news story done on Snapchat.
Sure. Of course, the only thing I have to say about that is that Kobe sucks. Michael's the greatest of all time. Go Warriors. But no, seriously, yeah, it's an amazing opportunity for fans of Kobe to get involved in that story. So if you're in the area, I've been at events where as I snap, I have an opportunity to add my story. We'll get into that a little bit later. To add my story to an overarching story that's happening at that event that Snapchat is sponsoring, et cetera. And, it doesn't mean that you're always going to be included. I guess somebody is curating that at this point, but or maybe there's some AI that kind of selectively picks which stories get included. But it's an opportunity for fans to contribute to that. And you can see interesting stories from all over the world. They regularly feature just cities. So last week I saw that there was a Nashville story. You'd look through it or you'd watch it, and there was just everyday people, living in Nashville doing interesting things, a lot of country music and a lot of honky tonk in that particular story, but it gives you the feel of Nashville. And so that was a cool thing, I thought.
Yeah, I love the fact that they went from fans who are waiting to get into the arena, and then you click it, and the next video is Kobe landing in a helicopter up top, and then him walking through, and just this, you felt like you got this behind the scenes look, and it was just this, group of people that were just sharing all this content online.
Right. And it's live, it's in the moment. You can see it for 24 hours, but there's that sense of this is happening right now. It's not overproduced and released later on. And so that lends a sense of sense of urgency, and it kind of adds to the coolness, I think.
Yeah, and the fact that that Snapchat, the videos are 10 seconds or less. In today's world, we don't have the attention span, to watch a 3-minute clip. It's like 10 seconds, and it's the next thing. And so in those 10 seconds, you're getting some really powerful video quickly.
Yeah, well, for me, the reason why I gravitated towards that early on is because my mind is really lazy, and I have a hard time just focusing on a video that goes on and on for 3 or 4 minutes. Sometimes they're succinct, sometimes they kind of take forever to get to a point, to make a point. And what I've realized as I tell stories, or as like, I'll do what we call, like a tweet storm, but a Snapstorm. And if I have like sort of a longer thing to get off my chest or to talk about, longer subject, you start to think in 10-second bites. And to me, it's like how a lot of web content is presented these days in these bite-sized nuggets, top 10 items, subheadings for each one so your eyes can scan. And I love that about Snapchat. It's like, give it to me in 10-second bites, that I can wrap my head around that really quickly. I can, tap it to fast forward if I feel like this part isn't, I want to get to, point number 2 or point number 3. And the best storytellers that I follow do this really, really well, where they're telling a really long, potentially complicated story, but they're able to chunk it out into like 10, and anybody can digest a 10-second nugget, and it forces the storyteller to get to the point. So I love that.
Okay, let's get into Snapchat 101. So on the very basic level, what is this app?
It's an app that on the most basic level, that allows users to message each other. We all know that instant messaging is one of the hottest spaces in digital, and particularly in the mobile space right now. It was really the only area of growth in mobile last year, significant growth. We know about, all these big players, WhatsApp, Line, and they just have so much market share, so much engagement happening with all the texts and the messaging and the stickers and the ways that you can express yourself. And that's what Snapchat is. It's a way for people to stay in touch and communicate via chat, via short messages, video messages primarily, but you can also express yourself through stickers and filters and things like that.
And what about the 24-hour window?
It's a very transient medium, a way of communicating, and all of the messages disappear. They started out actually just disappearing right away. You watch it one time and it's gone. Now they offer the ability for you to purchase replays, which is, a pretty interesting monetization play. And I find myself buying those replay packs all the time because I want to watch something that a friend sent me a second time. But yeah, it's very here right now, in the moment, gone later. And again, for me, that's the biggest thing about it. It lends a sense of urgency. It's like right now, what's happening now? This is important right now. And if you miss it, you miss it. Life goes on, and it's not a big deal. It's not really for archiving, going back over what happened yesterday. This is really like, here's what's happening right now. And I love that. It just for me, it just makes me want to experience it more because there's a sense of urgency and a sense of timeliness to it, the here and the now. And the same thing with the stories too. Although the stories have a little bit more reach, they don't disappear after you watch it one time. But even those disappear after 24 hours. So Snapchat is all about here now. They discourage screenshotting. They discourage other people trying to save your message, because it's like, here's what I want to say right now. Experience it right now in the moment, and it's gone. So they're very anti screenshot and saving, archiving, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and two, if I send you a snap, as soon as you read it, it'll disappear. It's not like it stays in some like long chat thread. So
Exactly. Although, so if we were getting into a little bit of the sort of the tutorial aspect of this, you can, if it's a chat where I type something to you, you can save that by long pressing. If you tap a chat message, so if it's a text chat, you can save those. But when it comes to video, yes, you can replay it once if you purchase that replay pack, but otherwise it's see ya.
all right, you mentioned stories a few times. What is a story in regards to Snapchat?
Yeah, story is a string of media put together, chronological order. It can be photos, video, obviously, and you can again express yourself using filters, using the geo fence enabled filters that tell you where I am. And you string these little bits together to tell an overarching story. So if I'm at an event, it could be, oh, here I am walking through the door, and then a little bit later, here I am meeting, at the registration desk, meeting some friends. Here's the speaker coming up. Here's the intro music, whatever it is, and you can, and it's again not this long. I don't get 5 minutes of that. Me walking in, I get 10 seconds of this part, 10 seconds of this part, and so it's sort of like fast forwards you through to the good parts of what's going on, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we've worked in the web for years, and even in publishing, like life is all about stories. That's how we learn. That's how we do life. I think Snapchat is just tapping into this goes back thousands of years. We just learned through stories, and they're tapping into that with our society who has no attention span anymore.
Right. And the cool thing is, again, about the expression, the self-expression part of this. I just took a selfie, which is one way to tell a quick story, I suppose. But here, using filters, I can tell you what time it is. I can tell you where I am. I'm in Colorado Springs right now. I've got these bags under my eyes, so I've drawn on this screen really quickly to highlight those and tell you that I'm tired. You're going to see that backwards. But so, the self-expression part, to add to a still photo, to add to a video, you could do a lot of this stuff over video. Snapchat actually today or yesterday, it released the ability to add emoji that tracks your face and moves with you. So if I'm going like this and I want to put, a face on top, then I should have made that bigger to cover my ugly mug, but it could follow me around. So there's all kinds of cool things you can do to add to the story to express how you feel at the moment. It's pretty cool.
Okay, so how do you do those? Because for the first 5 days I was on Snapchat, I had no idea. I had to text somebody. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I've heard from a lot of people who try to get in and then they abandon it because it's just not intuitive to them. I think for early adopters that download a lot of apps and play and try a lot of different apps, it seems pretty cool. I think, but the whole swipe to get to other options feature. But so here they are. If you take a picture, for example, you can swipe across the screen to get to other options. Here's an ad for this. This movie looks so bad. The cat Keanu thing. But so you'll see interesting things like that sometimes. If you're in a really interesting location, French Quarter, Soho in New York or something like that, you'll see geofence determine filters specific to that location. Sometimes, again, for events like, hey, Kobe's last game, etc. You might see those things. So you can slide to get to these things. At the top, there are options to do text, where you can type over to, if the video isn't self-explanatory and you want to send a little message. You can draw, so that's cool, and undo, and then you can add the emoji as well. So those are the most basic aspects of adding to a photo or a video.
And what's great about those is, especially with like I have young kids, like we play with those filters all the time, and you don't have to share every time you record a video. You can just put that filter on, and we'll sit there for hours just putting like different goofy filters on each other and looking at them. And you can save those videos locally too, so it doesn't have to go to the world.
Yeah,
Um,
there's at the bottom you'll see an option to save to a story that you're trying to create, or to send it as a one-on-one message, or to a select group of friends. You can just select a few people, and you can download it as well. You can trash it and start over. Another cool thing is this is awesome technology because it's really sophisticated and really difficult to do from a technology perspective. But you know the you can do facial filters on top of video. So I'm moving, it's tracking my face and it's following my eyes, and it allows you to do cool things. My kids love the one where I, similar to this, shoots lightning laser bolts out of my eyes, and you know there's like dogs and things like that. Those are hours of fun. Seriously, I've never seen anybody that had never really played with Snapchat. Every time they look at that, they all bust out laughing. They really have a good time.
yeah. But do you see yourself, like the way you conduct your day, like looking for moments to share with the people that follow you on Snapchat, or capturing those moments?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, there are days when I share more often than other days, depending on what's going on. But it's kind of like Twitter. I think a lot of us that have been on Twitter for a long time, you know, we've gone through phases where you're sitting at your desk and you're always like on Twitter, kind of sharing every emotion throughout your day, what you're eating, what's going on, what you're watching. Obviously, the whole second screen phenomena is huge and important. But I think Snapchat initially it takes a while to get used to because it is that sort of real quick instant video kind of thing. But that lens that opens up a whole world of potential as well. You're not limited to one medium. So yeah, you once you get in the habit of it, you start thinking about telling these stories. And again, it kind of makes it easy because again, you have 10 seconds. For some people, that's a barrier, and it like, oh wait, I wasn't done. But once you get into the rhythm of it, it's like, oh yeah, just bite-sized pieces, and break everything down into just the most important tidbit. Kind of helps people to become better storytellers because you're not rambling on like I kind of tend to do, obviously. But you know, you can kind of break things down into 10-second pieces, and it's just easier for people to listen to.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what I like too is it makes me think about, I mean, time flies. But when you're thinking in these moments, like I saw you today, you snapped like Pikes Peak. You know, for me, you know, sometimes we forget this beautiful city we live in, and capturing those moments and just being, you know, realizing like, hey, that's something worth remembering or something worth sharing, and someone else may find, you know, useful. And thinking of your life as a narrative, as a story as
yeah,
well.
and you know what's cool is it's less pressure, I think, because like on Instagram, when I put up pictures, I try to not annoy my friends too much. I try not to have like every photo be of my kids or of my dog or of the snow on my porch. We all do that, especially when it snows in April. I mean, you gotta give, you know, we get a pass, right, in mid-April to do that. But you know, there's a lot of pressure, and because you know, I go back and look at my feed sometimes, and I go, you know, there's a lot of food pics or, you know, stuff that isn't really worth telling. But again, the transient nature of it, I think, takes a lot of pressure off. It's like, here's what's going on today. You know, it's like I don't have to. It's not a masterpiece. It's going to stick around forever. So.
Yeah, I also think it takes some of the pressure off of, you know, like with Instagram, we'll crop it, we'll filters, we'll make sure we have the right angle. Where Snapchat, it's like, who cares? Throw it up there. It's going to be gone in 24 hours. Don't worry about it and move on. All right, so lost your audio.
Oh, sorry. So there's a comment right here that somebody made a little while ago. It said something I didn't catch that, but made me remove the app. Made no sense to me. The biggest problem with Snapchat, that a lot of people are trying to disrupt and kind of create solutions for is it's hard to follow. Like, you don't know who to follow when you first join. I mean, if you happen to have people in your contacts list on your phone that are amazing storytellers, experienced Snapchat users, and they've been doing this, and they're, and you're interested in them, you might keep it. But a lot of people dropped off right away because it's like, what next? There's like 2 people, nothing's really happening, or you try to watch some of the brand stories and you may not be interested. So that's the biggest challenge that Snapchat has. There's apps like Ghost Codes, and there's a ton of websites out there that, like Snapchat.codes, Snapchat.directory, that try to do different aspects of curation. Like, here's really interesting celebrities. So if you're interested in sports, start here. If you're interested in technology. And so for me, the thing that really got me, like, I was playing around with it a little bit, not that engaged. Would use it to send messages occasionally with other friends that were active on Snapchat. And I knew that was going to get their attention. It was good because they were in the app a lot. But what really got me engaged was, when I started following the right people who were snapping every day about stuff that I was interested in. So for me, Justin Kahn, who is like, super famous venture capitalist, investor, startup guy, he started a ton of companies, billionaire. He sold one of his startups, Twitch, to Amazon for $1 billion. Amazon, yeah. The game video company, and he talks about startup life, how to find a co-founder, how to apply to YC Combinator, what to look for when you hire, how to fire, valuation and things like that. And so I geek out about that stuff, and he's a really good storyteller, and he knows, again, like, how to break everything down into 10-second bits so they're easily digestible. He's not like it's not like watching a 20-minute video where you have to be like, all right, let me focus in and learn. It's just like quick tidbits of like, oh, I got that. And that's really cool. So I think it's all about who you follow initially. Mark Suster is another guy who's a Silicon Valley guy who's always talking about, like, he gets really deep. So if you're a startup guy, like me, then, there's again, Ghost Codes and some of these directories have started kind of curating who to follow. So that's really helpful. If you feel like, I don't see the value in this. I think it's all about following the great storytellers.
Yeah, that's where I texted you when I first signed up, because I was like, man, I'm not getting any value out of it. And you gave me a few people to follow, and it was cool because it was those 10-second videos. It was, screenshots, stuff like that. Yes, awesome. One of the guys I love to follow is Gary Vaynerchuk, and that guy, like, he travels everywhere, and he's documenting it. Cab rides, just these random, 10-second thoughts. And there's so much value for me that I'm getting out of it. But I also get to see, his team. Like, I think today he was in VaynerMedia London. Yesterday he was in Maryland. Like, just to follow him and follow his story, you feel like you're in his backpack with him.
We should say, as a quick footnote, that he basically drops like 4 F-bombs in every 10-second snap. So be aware of that. Oh, one thing, there's a couple of questions here that, Mike, that you might want to get to, kids and privacy, et cetera. Just real quickly on privacy. One of the things that I love, as a guy that develops apps and thinks through mobile strategy, user experience, one of the things that I love about Snapchat that I just think, like, more apps need to do this. They're very upfront about the permissions they request on your device, location, camera access, microphone. A lot of apps do this, and they just, usually what happens is you install the app and ask you, enable the camera, and they do a little bit of that, but there are other permissions that they don't immediately ask you for unless you get to the point where you need it. And the cool thing is, in the settings, you can get to this screen that just lists all the permissions. Here's what we've asked you for. Here's what you've given us. And it's really easy to find. I love that transparency. So you can go back in there and go, did I give them access to my contacts? Can I change that again? And it'll jump you, like, I clicked one button and it jumped me into my iOS settings. So it's not all hidden, where I have to go, oh, let me go back in iOS settings and figure out what would like dig in there to see if I can remove location permissions for Snapchat. So I just feel like that's, really like putting the user first. If you have privacy concerns, go here. Here's like everything that you've given us. I think that's really cool.
No, that's good. And I'm going to kind of get to Boris's question here, but this app has been, it keeps popping up on these like most dangerous apps for kids. And I know parents who are like, it's dangerous, let's just not even go there. But the thing is, like, the kids are going there, and I have experience with sexting. We had a couple teenage foster girls who lived with us, and we busted one of them sexting with somebody else. And you realize, like, this is a scary world. And when you download these apps and you go to these different websites, you're inviting people you don't know into your life. And so, I mean, we're tech dads. And so how do you keep your kids safe, but also, Snapchat is not the devil. Yes, it can be used for evil, but it can be used for good as well.
There's a lot of apps that are misused, I mean,
oh yeah,
crazy stuff happens via SMS. I mean,
yeah,
sure. Obviously.
That's where, our daughter was, just simple text message, sexting back and forth with this dude. But what we did was we educated them on the dangers. I mean, just Google some stories of what happens when people get connected to the wrong people. Because there's a lot of just evil people out there pretending they're someone they're not. And so for us, educating them about what the real world is like. And what I do like about Snapchat versus like a Twitter is, you control that list of who sees what you're putting out there. But what we also had to do, since they were foster girls, is every night we had to go through their text messages. As a parent, like it's up to you. I mean, you are the parent, like you can do this with your kids. But our one daughter, she was sending about 20,000 text messages a month. And every night we had to go through, a couple hundred, just, reading them. But what we did over time is we built trust. And once she earned that trust, then it was, we slowed it down. But I think a lot of it's, yes, it can be used for danger, evil, but education and trust has to be built in there.
Yeah, for someone like me where I haven't had to deal with that, it sounds really crazy that you'd have to look at every text message. But I mean, everybody I talk to, where they're in that stage where what they're working towards having kind of that relationship with their kids, where it's like, hey, here are the boundaries, that communication where, yeah, if you want to have Instagram, it's got to be on this iPod that we share or whatever, and that's how it's going to be done. That seems like that's really the only way, is that communication and that just the awareness of what's going on. Because it seems like if you say, well, I can't do that, it's not going to work for us, so I'm just going to ban it. It seems like that's not going to, like, kids aren't going to be like, okay, well, cool, I'll never, do anything behind your back, or I won't try to use technology and explore on my own. It just doesn't seem like it's going to work that way. But whatever you do, don't let your kids do stupid stuff like this. Just kidding. That is really ugly.
That's my kid's favorite filter, the tomato,
strawberry. Oh, is that a tomato? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tomato.
Yeah, and these things change every day. That's again the sort of the snap. Again, we talked briefly earlier about the things that Snapchat does differently from other apps, but I love their commitment to just iteration. Just like every day they're releasing something new and doing some crazy things.
Hey, we have a question from our good friend, Mr. Patterson here. How do you balance professional content and entertain your friends at the same time?
Well, let me guess. My guess would be Dalton's professional content is amazing. So if his friends aren't entertained by that, he's getting friends. Okay, that was a really corny joke. What do you think, Mike?
He's got really good friends. I don't know if there's a good mix, but every time I snap, I want to show people I'm real, I'm authentic, and value can come in professional sense, but it can also come into just making someone laugh. Let's not take life so stinking seriously sometimes. So I think there's a lot of value in the fun stuff as well, just showing like, hey, I'm a normal person just like you.
I do like it. I agree with you. I do like it when people mix it up personally, but some people aren't like that. But again, sort of the technology, the way that they built Snapchat in these 10-second bits, little bite-sized nuggets, the fact that it takes one tap to fast forward to the next 10-second nugget gives you the ability to skip stuff you don't really want to watch. It's not like watching a YouTube video where you have to kind of find where the next bit is. It's like, oh, this part doesn't. And I wanted to watch this Gary Vee talk, but this part he's really talking about fitness, and I'm not interested in that or whatever. Or he's talking about bourbon, so let me, and trying to find that. The great thing about Snapchat is like skip, bam, to the next thing. And again, like the great storytellers, it's again all about who you follow. Like you need to find interesting people to follow because like Justin Kahn, again, he's just a great storyteller. He's got a huge following on Snapchat. And if you missed it, I was saying that he's this venture capitalist, startup guy, startup veteran, talks about stuff that is applicable to guys leading that life, in the thick of a startup, how to hire, how to fire, how to do valuation, how to do, stock shares and things like that. So I've picked up rhythms, like where he will do a Snapstorm in the morning when he's on his exercise bike and take questions, and he'll start talking about really deep technology, Silicon Valley type stuff. But then later on throughout the day, there will be other things. He's at meetings, he's at YC Combinator, he's at meeting with his startups that he's invested in. So that's like a different kind of thing throughout the day. And then at night, he's often in the club, and I'm like, fast forward, and I get to the morning again. So again, like I think the 10-second thing really helps. So it's less pressure for me. It's like, hey, if they didn't like my last snap, it's not that big of a deal. It's not gonna be archived. They can skip through it and then get to the good stuff. So that's my approach.
What I do teach when I work with authors or people with platforms is to pick 3 words, and everything you do, talk about, teach, like try and tie it into those 3 different words. So if you started talking about, knitting or something, like I might be turned off, but you're always talking about, technology, startups, and just your personal life, parenting. If you were just like all over the place every day with so many different things you're doing, like that might turn me off. But everybody has their 3 different like topics they can like talk about. So try and figure out what your 3 words are and then kind of live in that circle, and don't be afraid to go outside the circle. But come back in or bring it back here. Actually, I'm going to unlock this seat here. Dalton, you want to jump in and ask that next question? I'll read it. How do you, and I had a hard time doing this before too, but how do you measure engagement with your Snap?
Well, you can see, there are ways to see how many people have viewed your Snap. So I can expand my story. My story is at the very top, and you see the thing with the 3 dots over to my right of it. And you can see, how many eyeballs have got each 10-second bit, or 5 seconds or 3 seconds if it's a still, has gotten. So you can see how many eyeballs it's gotten. Obviously, there's engagement in terms of you can respond to snaps. That's obviously a very powerful aspect of Snapchat. Even if they're not following me back, if it's a story, like if it's the most recent bit, because they break it out. Again, it's like the power of right now. That's the biggest thing about Snapchat. It's like a sense of urgency. So they break it down into recent updates and then just the stories over the past 24 hours. For the recent updates, if I watch something, even if they're not following me back, I can respond with a video. So that's really cool. And again, so you can see how many people are watching. You can snap back and forth. Snapchat, again, if you missed this earlier, they're really about the here and the now. They're very against screenshotting, trying to archive some way, somehow, something that you've said. So they'll notify you. So that's probably not what you meant by measuring engagement, but you can kind of tell, like, okay, hey, there's a little icon here that tells me Dalton screenshotted, a picture of me getting out of the shower. Dalton, don't do that.
Never, Paul. So yeah,
enough of those already. So Dalton, I mean, what's your first impression of Snapchat? You're a parent with younger kids, but they're also in tech. As a parent, like how are you navigating that tool, but also as a professional?
So yeah, I've only been on Snapchat for about two weeks. Actually, one of our new employees who just started had to help me through the onboarding process. So for a guy to work in technology, it was something, completely new to me. I mean, I think kind of like you guys have pointed on that when Snapchat came out, there were so many negative things being talked about. It was a sexting app is, what we learned. And, for me to have downloaded it as an early adapter, I would have a lot of explaining to do, if my wife saw that yellow ghost on my phone. So something that I stayed away from. But as I started catching wind of, businesses using Snapchat to kind of reach that millennial audience on there, it became more realistic for a use case for me.
As as Mike mentioned earlier, a huge chunk of the most engaged user base for Snapchat are people in their 20s and up to their mid 30s. And I promise you, nobody I follow is under 30. Probably it's mostly, again, like VCs, technology people. And I should probably blog about this. My favorite people to follow: Morgan B. Morgan B 180, who's a growth hacker, and he really breaks down like growth hacking techniques, marketing techniques. Hackapreneur is another one of those guys, growth hackers. So, for me, it's like all business. Well, not all business. I follow some really good storytellers as well, musicians and whatnot. But yeah. Dalton, you were saying about kids?
Yeah. So the kids, they just love the filters. And that goes back to my same point is like, how do you maintain that professional storyteller, content, and then still, throw in a puppy dog nose, in a couple of your tweets a day? I mean, do you guys have any, advice just like, yes. Hey, if you're really trying to build something on storytelling, don't do that. Or, to your point, Mike, I like how you said, well, just don't take yourself so serious, So
here's one with some data to back it up. So I worked with Francis Chan, New York Times bestselling author, and we had all these professionally made videos on YouTube that where he was talking about discipleship and God. And his number one viewed, like by far, video was him breakdancing in this deli. And the beauty of it was, he's a preacher, speaker, but he's also a dad, and he's also a really good breakdancer. And so, I trust in data. And it's like, that's what people are watching over and over and over. And it's like, let's give them more of that. Like, let's show them like who this person is. I think that helps build up their credibility. Because I worked in Christian publishing, and there's a lot of authors that I'm not huge fans of. But they're putting a persona up through their books, through their website. But you get to know them, and it's like, probably not somebody I'd follow. But in today's world, like, you got to earn that trust with showing who you are, what you say, what you do, and you can do that with this app. One quick thing I want to point out was I have an ebook that I'm turning into a course because we learned some hard lessons through the sexting episodes with this is when chat roulette was really big. So I wrote an ebook called Protecting Kids Online, and I'm turning that into a course. It should be ready here in a few weeks, but it's for parents who are to figure out what to do. I talk about different filters that we put in with our kids. And this, our girls, they had, not smartphones, but they could text. But we got in trouble with them just with website stuff. And so go to techdads.com, sign up for the email list, and then when the course is ready, you can join that. But there's a lot of really cool free tools as well to help parents to kind of block different people. But education and just some simple tips and tricks can help you protect your kids.
Yeah, and I think the more you get involved with the media that your kids are using, the more savvy you get. You can really quickly kind of scroll through a list of users that they're engaging with and kind of get a feel for what kind of content that they're producing and putting out there. Just keep engaging, just up the level of savvy that you have around, what types of content people are creating, I think.
All right, we're at the 45-minute mark. Any closing thoughts, comments, questions before we sign off?
I think what you guys were talking about, both of you hit the authenticity of it. And, RussJohns.com down there is talking about that. And I've found as I've tried to engage and I've tried to develop a brand, it's, Mike's touched it on, Francis Chan. It's just being real, I guess, being yourself is what's most important.
Yeah, and the technology again lends itself to being real. We mentioned earlier, sort of comparing to Instagram. A lot of times there's this pressure on Instagram. You have to get that perfect picture. It has to be in focus. You have to, use the filters to pretty it up, and then bam, it's up there, and it's probably gonna be up there for forever. I'll give you one example as a buddy of mine that is in the music business, and he's out producing big events, big concerts in the recording studio. And I love the fact that his Snap is not well produced, but it gives me look. He's like backstage at this event at a stadium. They're putting this concert together. This is a fail. They had a projection problem with this huge backdrop to a stage, and he doesn't I follow him on Instagram as well. He doesn't Instagram that stuff as often because again, it takes time. He's producing that and kind of doing the filters. But this gives me a glimpse of his life. It's fascinating to me. Low pressure for him. So I think that should, video is going to be, we've talked about the engagement numbers, those metrics. Videos is where it's at. The sense of urgency, the sense of right now is huge going forward, especially for brands trying to engage and for content creators. So, I think that's where it's at.
All right, one last question. Is Snapchat the devil? I'll answer that. It's not.
I've seen a devil filter on the facial recognition thing.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks for everybody joining us and watching this on the replay. Hope you found it valuable, and check back again as we break down more technology, parenting tips, tactics. And we'll see you.